In the additional content added to later versions of Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, the player is able to explore the Labyrinth of Amala, an enormous dungeon with an incredible blend of traditions and themes, which gives the entire game a new layer of complexity and mysticism. This section of the game is heavily tied to the Jewish mystic tradition of Kabbalah, the spiritual journey from the physical realm to oneness with God in the spiritual realm. It is the path that leads to the true demon ending, in which the demi-fiend embraces his darker nature, and the symbolism associated with it creates the image of a man ascending to godhood. Kabbalah is centered upon the journey to oneness with the divine source, called Ein Sof, the infinite. Kabbalists divide the universe into these concealed and revealed aspects of God. Ein Sof, the infinite, is the unknowable aspect of God. We cannot comprehend infinity, but we can understand aspects of God, the way he manifests in the world, and by better understanding the manifestations, we become closer to the infinite. These manifestations are organized and grouped together into a graph which visually represents the journey from the known to the unknown. This graph is called the Tree of Life. The circles represent manifestations of the divine, and each is assigned various attributes, emotions, divine beings, and other manifestations. These divisions are called the Sephiroth. And each of the 11 menorahs of Shin Megami Tensei 3 is connected to one of these Sephiroth. Kabbalah also divides the universe into a series of worlds stacked upon one another. Tradition typically says there are 4, but some say 5, including the first world as the primeval man or representation of God, Adam Kadmon. The first universally accepted world is Absolute, emanation, then Baraya, creation, Yetzira, formation, and lastly Asiya, actualization. Each of these is also tied to one of the 5 stages of becoming one with God. The Labyrinth of Amala is also divided into 5 worlds, each associated with a stage of the spiritual journey, and the Sephiroth tied to that level through the menorahs used to access it. The first menorah is the Menorah of Sovereignty. It's called Okoku in Japanese, meaning kingdom, and the Sephira of Kingdom is Malkuth, which represents the physical world, the starting point of a Kabbalist's journey to spiritual enlightenment. The second is the Menorah of Foundation, which represents Yesod, the entrance to the spiritual world. You must pass from Malkuth to Yesod to begin the spiritual journey. Defeating the Matador and obtaining this menorah unlocks the Labyrinth, allowing the demi-fiend access to the paths that lead to the divine. All the other Sephiroth emanate from above and pass down into Malkuth through Yesod, the foundation, the phallus of the body. Malkuth is female and Yesod is male, and the act of manifesting all of creation is a spiritual union between the two. Only by having both can one begin the journey to God. The second Kalpa opens when the player obtains the menorahs of eternity and dignity. Eternity is obtained from Daisojo, a demon inspired by the Buddhist tradition of mummified monks, or Sokushin Butsu, a practice in which a monk would slowly starve to death before being buried alive. Eternity is Netsak, the first Sephira on the right path, associated with masculinity and the right foot, also called victory or endurance. It's not just eternity, but eternal strength and fortitude, something an entombed monk would certainly be a master of. The next menorah comes from Hellbiker, based on the American biker gang Hell's Angels. Defeating him gives the player the Menorah of Dignity, which is equivalent to Hod, the first feminine Sephira on the left side, the left foot, and it means splendor, majesty, or beauty. Where Netsak is victory and the power to overcome, Hod is submission, the ability to give in. The two are connected because they are aspects of one another, opposites, which become one in Yesod, the creative force. The third Kalpa opens with the menorahs of compassion, insight, and wisdom, obtained from 3 of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Defeating the White Rider gives the player the menorah of compassion, or jihi, in Japanese, meaning mercy. This is chesed, the sephira associated with kindness and love, the right leg and the second of the masculine sephirot on the pillar of mercy. The Red Rider's defeat gives the player the menorah of insight, or rikai, meaning understanding. In Kabbalah, understanding is Binah, the mother of all the sephirot and the womb of creation, representing the Divine Mother. Next is the Black Rider, who has the menorah of wisdom, which correlates to the sephira, Hokmah. Hokmah is Binah's partner, the father to the mother, the seed that impregnates the womb. It is another of the intellectual Sephiroth, the one most closely associated with Keter and the Ein Sof, as wisdom comes from nothingness. It is the beginning, because it is the first real existence outside of God and nothingness, and it leads to creation. The fourth Kalpa is obtained with the menorahs of majesty, knowledge, beauty, and glory. Knowledge is Da'at, which is Hebrew for mind or knowledge, obtained from either Dante or Raido. This character knows more about what's going on than the Demi-Fiend does, and either of them states they are testing them or warning them away from this path. They have knowledge, and proving you're strong enough to deserve that knowledge will prompt them to pass the menorah to you. Da'at is a special piece of the tree, and one that isn't universally represented in every tradition. Da'at is the realized version of Keter, the crown. Kabbalists say there are 10 Sephirot in total, and Da'at and Keter are usually seen as one and the same. The Pale Rider has the menorah of majesty, which in Japanese is Okan, meaning crown. It is Keter, which is Hebrew for crown, and is the top of the tree. It is the most hidden and concealed aspects of God that can be known, the last theoretical, understandable parts of the divine humans can conceive of. The Mother Harlot is a figure from Christian apocalyptic tales, where she's known as the Whore of Babylon. Her menorah represents Gevura, the female aspect of severity, for which the left pillar is named. It is judgment and holy law, self-restraint and control, and is often characterized as the disciplinary mother. The last fiend is Trumpeter, found in Yurakucho Station, an angel who represents the final trumpets that will sound during the apocalypse. His menorah relates to Tiferet, the center of the tree, the symbol of glory, beauty, and balance. Tiferet is often translated as beauty in English, but it also means glory. Having obtained all the menorahs and navigated the maze-like paths of the labyrinth, the player comes face to face with the mysterious man in the wheelchair and is reborn as a demon. This will lead to a new ending of the game in which the Demi-Fiend rejects creation and faces off against Lucifer to prove his resolve. But who exactly is the man in the wheelchair, or the boy who appears in the main game, or the women who appear with them? And how do they relate to the Kabbalah? In Japanese, the child and old woman are called Kodomo Toroba, meaning child and grandmother. Unlike the English names, the Japanese titles imply a relationship, even a blood bond between the child and woman. The Japanese name for the young woman in the labyrinth is Mofuku no Shukujo, Lady in Mourning, associating her with death, while the name for the man in the wheelchair is Kurumaisu no ro Shinshi, Gentleman in a Wheelchair. The names of both characters imply class and power, and they are complements of one another. These characters are always seen together, and they are polar opposites. When the boy is young, the woman is old, and vice versa. One is associated with light, life, and the masculine. The other is dark, feminine, and in mourning, wearing a veil as if someone has died. Yet both are tied together, gentleman and lady, grandmother and grandchild. The transformation of the protagonist from human to something other begins with them. These two capture and forcibly change the demi-fiend, and in the true demon ending, it is their power which fully transforms him from human to demon. They represent the transformative power of the universe, the physical embodiments of the Sephiroth, the two branches of life and death, male and female. The left side is feminine, darkness, death. The right side is masculine, light and life. They are both necessary, and ascending the tree requires passing through both sides, and none of them are seen without their complementary piece. Gendered pieces of the tree are always connected. God is the Ein Sof, the infinite, often described in male terms, but there is also a female aspect of creation, Shekinah, without whom no life would be possible. She is the divine presence in the world, the feminine aspect of the divine. Everything in the universe contains both of these things, the feminine and masculine. These characters are always together because they are the embodiment of the divine male and female, the tree of life, the connection between all opposing forces, the unity of opposites that creates the world and emanates from God. This is why all four figures disappear when the final fight with Lucifer begins. All four, the boy, the man, the old woman, and the young woman, are aspects of the same being who become one in Lucifer. The goal of the Kabbalah is to ascend the tree of life and become one with the divine, to return to the source of life and light. Shin Megami Tensei 3 turns this idea on its head, presenting a character ascending a divine tree into the depths of the underworld, becoming a demon himself. Yet the association is still positive. He is ascending the tree of life, not the tree of death. The tree of death is the companion of the tree of life, and instead of Sephiroth, it contains Kalpas, the remains of the shattered vessels that could not handle God's light. The origins of all evil are contained in this tree, and it is presented as containing all the hells and demons of the world, including Samael, leader of the fallen angels. Yet Shin Megami Tensei 3 does not use the symbols or names associated with the Kalpa and the fallen world. Instead, he is climbing the tree that leads to God, but the God he is becoming one with is Lucifer. After all, Demi-Fiend's life began in the hospital after Lucifer gave him Amagatama. He is reborn with the light of the Lifebringer. The rest he must do himself. He is left incomplete, only half a demon. Kabbalah says that God leaves the world incomplete because it is up to us to complete it. We must overcome the flaws in the universe in order to reach perfection. It is our task and our test. Lucifer gives Demi-Fiend the start, the spark of light that would allow him the possibility to ascend, but Demi-Fiend must prove his own ability by finishing the ascent himself. The end of the tree leads to Lucifer and the Lady in Black and a room of blood. Demi-Fiend is shown lowering into the blood as Lucifer watches, smirking, and he awakens to find himself back in that same room in the hospital, reborn once again. He has become a demon and become one with God, with Lucifer, the god of fallen angels and demons.